All right, and we're back. This is episode 119 of Catfish on Ice. Welcome in. This is your host, Chad Minton. And that person you hear screaming in the background right there
I'm good at that.
We have a really great guest. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start it off like this. They always say, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Oh.
We've got ourselves a really awesome guest, though. I'm kind of joking there, kind of not. But we do have a really good friend here that's joining the podcast today. And that is Mason of St. Louis Game Time, part of SB Nation. He's a contributor for them. He also does appearances with Toasted St. Louis, which is also been affiliated with the Hockey Podcast Network, covering the St. Louis Blues. Welcome in, Mason. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty all right, Chad. Thanks for having me. It's exciting being back in front of a studio audience again. It's great.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, this gigantic studio audience that we have.
I was gonna say live studio audience, but this is pre-recorded.
My living room is just full of audience members right now, as you can imagine.
I got a couple cats in the background. They're my audience.
Those are the best audience members right there. Anyway, so
yeah, they never boo. They'll hiss a few times, but they don't make you feel stupid, which is always nice.
Go. Yeah, for sure. All right, so really, we always love to have other fan bases on. I love to get the perspective of rival teams in the division, and it's a great time for that right now because this division race is really tightening up in the Central, as it usually is this time of year. Nothing new for us Central Division fans. And so we're going to get into that. But first, I really want to get into it with you, Mason, when it comes to what your perspective is of the Blues-Preds rivalry. Because I can say from my perspective as a Preds fan, and a lot of Preds feel this way, other than maybe the Chicago Blackhawks, the Blues are like the team that really Preds fans just dislike. They just really, it means extra when the Preds can beat the St. Louis Blues. And, we kind of lost that last year because of the 56-game schedule. Mm-hmm. And so we got that back this year. And I love it when the Preds and the Blues play. I don't like to miss those games for anything. So I kind of want to get your perspective as you cover the Blues. And what does the Preds-Blues rivalry mean to you?
Absolutely. Well, I actually just recently had a friend take a road trip down to Nashville. It's an arena I've always wanted to go to. I used to have a girlfriend in the area, and she would brag every time she went to Preds games kind of thing. So, he went down, and I was like, all right, just make sure you're capturing that atmosphere because that's something I really want to be a part of one day. I really want to go to a Blues game in Smashville, and he had nothing but nice things to say. I mean, obviously every fan base has their bad fans, I guess you could say, especially online. That's just how the hockey Twitter culture is. But man, in real life, there's nothing like Preds fans. I mean, they're exciting, they're fun to talk to, they know what they're talking about. And they're just passionate about their team. And that's an atmosphere that I wish a lot of the other teams in the league, just don't seem to fully grasp, Blues included, So the Blues have kind of an old traditional kind of fan base feel to them. And Nashville is a very in your face, we just scored, So and that's an atmosphere I absolutely love. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, the rivalry between the two teams, I think it just has to do with both teams have always been in the playoff mix, their entire existence. I mean, the Blues were known obviously until relatively recently of being, playoff flops, but I mean, at least they were in the playoffs. And then here's Nashville, who kicked our ass in the second round in 2017. And, both teams have just been perennial, not necessarily contenders, but, in the playoff race and in the playoffs. So it's only natural for, these two teams, especially in the division, to cause a rivalry like that.
Definitely. Well, we can go ahead and take that new reputation of being playoff flops now, since you all won the Stanley Cup, because let me tell you, if the Preds can sneak into the playoffs this season, it'll be their 8th year in a row of making the playoffs. And
wow.
Yet they've got, a lot of people maybe outside the fan base don't realize that they make the play. It's become a regular occurrence. You make the playoffs. And a lot of Preds fans just don't really care about that anymore. I mean, even this year, the Preds weren't expected to make the playoffs. It was supposed to be kind of a retooling, rebuilding type of season. And lo and behold, they still got a chance to make the playoffs. And most Preds fans are still not satisfied. They're still angry. It's still not enough for them. And I do love that passion from this fan base. But, so I think what really happened with this rivalry that really amped it up for me and made it's more of a, you can go ahead and call it salty if you want. When the Blues won the Stanley Cup, it was like, well, there's another team that finally got a Stanley Cup. So
Well,
it's like that.
We've been around about 4 times longer than you too. Keep
That's
that
true.
in mind.
But it's like that group of teams is getting smaller and smaller that have never won a Stanley Cup. And even though the Preds have been around only for 2 decades now, but it's just like you don't like being in that group because it's like if you could have that in your arsenal whenever you're having an argument with another fan base about the Stanley Cups, like it really helps a lot. And we just don't have that. That's what every fan base goes to, especially Blackhawks fans. That's what they go to every time. Well, I don't really care what happened this season. How many cups do you have? And it's like, if I could just lose that part of
argument.
it. But,
hate that argument.
But let me go back and look at some of what's really also amped up this rivalry recently. You brought up the 2017 second round, which was still a really tightly contested playoff series. I know it went to 6 games, but the Preds were just
to watch.
The Preds were just on that. They were just on an insane hot streak. They were literally the example of just getting hot at the right time that year. It was just a magical run. And but then I think where it really got sideways for me about the Blues was the Robert Pertuzzo cross-check on Victor Arvidsson.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Because that ineffectively ended Victor Arvidsson's run with the Nashville Predators. He was a fan favorite, little RV running out there, just out skating everybody, and he was never the same. And now he's kind of having a revitalization with the Kings this year, which I love to see. But, I mean, you stole Victor Arvidsson from us. You really did.
I know I'm the worst. That was all me. I take full responsibility.
You told Robert Pertuzzo to do that.
I told him to do that. I knew using my numerous connections that I, of course, totally have. I asked Robert Pertuzzo to.
That's why I brought you on.
Because it's because I didn't want it to keep playing him in the division, man. You know how it is. you know exactly how it is.
Yeah.
Hey,
pull out all the stops. Hey, Mason, pull out all the stops, whatever it takes to win at all costs.
That's right. You know it, baby. You know it. No, when it comes to Victor Arvidsson, obviously not a nice cross check. Bad Bobby Bortz, who just recently got a 2-year contract extension. Bad boy. He should never do that. But to his credit, he's never really been. Well, I guess he had a reputation, but I mean, kind of recently he hasn't fought anybody in practice, which is, I guess, good. He hasn't, been out to get anybody. He's just been playing a more shutdown role. Maybe that's due to age. Maybe that's due to, I better stop doing this because I have a wife and kids. I don't know. But it's it was a dirty cross check, and I'm glad he got the suspension that he did. So
I mean, he could have picked a different player to have done it to that we didn't want, like I could have forgiven you for that, but
I see.
You're gonna do it to little RV. I mean, come on now. All right, we're being joined by Mason of St. Louis Game Time, contributor for SB Nation. Also, he has made appearances on Toasted St. Louis podcast, and also give the listeners how to follow you on Twitter real quick.
Just at Blues Fan Reacts, BLUES FANREACTS. Yeah, pretty simple. I post hot takes on there pretty constantly, and most people don't know if I'm being satirical half the time, which is part of the
those are the best
part
follows.
of the fun.
Those are the best follows. All right, so let's get to more current times here with the season. The season's rolling along here, but we're down to like the last 3 weeks of the regular season, believe it or not. And this playoff race is really tightening up, even though I got to say the top 3 is kind of starting to build some distance from the wild card race, which is a good spot to be in if you're the Blues, because that wild card position is going to leave you obviously a really tough first round matchup against Calgary. Definitely Colorado is going to be one of the opponents. But the Blues, kind of give me your outlook right now about the Blues. Do you feel like they're living up to your preseason expectations? Do you feel like there's reasons for some serious concern, even though it looks like for sure they're going to make the playoffs? how are you thinking about their playoff hopes and what they can make? Can they go deep? What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think the Blues have about been about where I expected. Beginning of the season, I said they're probably second round knockouts, nothing super special. Although this is one of the most gifted Blues offenses in a really, really long time, certainly in my lifetime. I mean, they just hit the, 720 goal scorers plateau the other night, which is
Yeah.
something that the Blues haven't had since 1985, and there's
Oh, wow.
still 12 games left. So I mean, this is a very gifted offense, but I mean, it's the thing that's killing him right now, which we all kind of expected was our defensive aspect. It obviously hasn't been the same since Pietrangelo. It obviously hasn't been the same since Bouwmeester. All those big guys who are used to carrying the workload, the guys that we have simply can't do it, and especially a couple untimely injuries like to Krug, for instance. I mean, I don't think Blues fans really appreciated how good he was in the lineup and how much he meant to this team, until he got hurt a week ago, But the Blues have been, had a pretty decent funk in March. That's probably one of the worst Marches we've ever had. Let's see, I'm looking 1, 2, only 4 wins in March, which is pretty bad. So and that was in,
but hey,
it's a little over a dozen games kind of
it's
thing.
better to get it out of your system in March than it is going through that right now in April, I guess. But yeah,
the Blues have kind of gotten their funk back.
yeah.
Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the last 6 games have been wins now, so they're sort of getting out of the funk, and they're still missing Krug, so and Bozak for that matter.
Well, you just mentioned it, and I mean, even from an outside perspective, I mean, the depth in the forwards that the Blues have is just what really makes me feel like they're capable of going on a deep run. I mean, just when you just mentioned the goal scorers or whatever, but like you just look at it. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Vladimir Tarasenko, and so it's pretty cool to see him get back into his form before his injury. David Perrin's a great player. Jordan Kyrou. I mean, you're just stacked. I mean, with a lot of really good depth scoring players. And so I feel like that's going to really help you a lot. But what about what's going on with your goaltending right now? I got to ask you about that because, I mean, Jordan Bennington was supposed to be like the next great young goaltender, and he still could end up being that. I'm not trying to say his career's over or anything, but he's having a pretty pedestrian mediocre year. You got to admit.
I know.
But then you got Husso. You got Husso out there who's looking pretty good. So I got to ask you, who's your game one starter in the playoffs? Is it definitely going to be Bennington?
I don't know. I don't know. That's the biggest. I didn't think that there could be a bigger controversy in St. Louis that wasn't top pair defenseman, but we found it and it presented itself in Jordan Bennington and Ville Husso. I mean, I don't think Blues fans expected Husso to be this good. I don't think Blues fans expected Bennington to be this absolutely terrible. So, I mean, especially, his last couple starts or so, I don't know what it is.
Well,
I don't know what's going on with Bennington.
Well, it's kind of happened with Saros a little bit in recent memory too in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Is it so much all on Bennington, or has the defense been really that bad? Because I can tell you for the Predators, yes, Saros has let in some really uncharacteristically bad goals and had a couple bad outings, but the defense in front of him is horrendous at a lot of times, and Saros is left out to dry in these 3-on-1, 2-on-1, 2-on-0 situations. Is Bennington suffering from the same type of stuff, or has Bennington just really been that bad?
I'm split on that because it does seem like, just watching the games, it really does seem like the team as a whole, not just the defense, but the team as a whole kind of, puts it in neutral whenever Bennington's in net. And I noticed they're a lot more proactive on the puck, when Husso's the one in net. I mean, the defense, if you're looking strictly defense, I think the Blues have actually surprised me. Their defense, I thought our defense was terrible, but I saw a stat the other day. They were like 10th in the league in goals against per game, which is like really freaking impressive, right? So, which I certainly did not expect. Yeah, they've allowed the 10th fewest goals. I'm checking right now, 10th fewest goals so far in the entire league, which is something I that really surprised me when I heard it, because it sure didn't look that way with a lot of games. Because the games that they're losing. You know, they had a 7-1 loss to Calgary not too long ago. They had a 4-7 loss to New Jersey. You know, they had a 2-7 loss to Carolina not too long ago. So, I mean, it's when the defense is on it, they're on it. But when they have a bad game, it shows. And when they get in that funk, I mean, that's the most nerve-wracking thing going into the playoffs is can you defense or not, you know?
For sure. Well, let's kind of look ahead a little bit. It's a little under 2 weeks away before the Preds and the Blues play their fourth and final meeting of the regular season. This season series, each one of these games has just had no shortage of drama. If you go back and look at the season series, the Preds won in early November, 4-3 in overtime. Matt Duchene had the game winner. That was a game that Philip Forsberg didn't even play in. So that's kind of surprising. David Riddick was our backup goaltender, played in that game. Feels like forever ago. But since that game where the Preds had to go to overtime to win, the Blues have really had their number. You look at January 17th meeting, the Preds blew a 2-0 lead that they got in the first period, and then the Blues just came storming back with 4 straight goals. And if you look at it, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Blues did well. Well, they had 1 power play goal. But what the season series, what I'm looking at here, and what really makes me nervous in a matchup against the Blues from a Preds perspective is you all are an elite team on the power play. You're third in the league right now on the power play, whereas the Preds, as you might know, commit the most penalties among all NHL teams.
Really?
And yes, we've been up there all season.
I would not have guessed that.
If you want to take a look, it's actually quite comical. If you want to take a look at the most penalties and the most penalty minutes taken in the league this year, the Preds are the leaders by a mile. I mean, they are. They're so much further ahead than the second place team that as far as penalty minutes. And so, as a Preds fan, if you think about a possible matchup against the Blues, you're like, we're not going to have a chance because the Blues power play is just going to burn us. Now, the Preds have a really good power play as well, but that just really makes me nervous. And so, the Preds and the Blues play on April 17th. I feel like that game might have some third place implications. It's only a 4-point difference right now in the standings. Last time I checked so it could end up being a top 3 implication type of game. How are you seeing that matchup? How are you feeling about it? I know we got a little bit of time left before then, but
obviously every single game is important, but games, especially against rivals that are so close in the standings, you want to get the upper hand as much as you can. I don't want to play Colorado. I don't know about how Preds fans feel on that issue, but that's not a team I feel like playing. I don't feel like playing Calgary either. But when it comes to potentially playing Minnesota, I'm kind of okay with it. I mean, we kicked their ass in the Winter Classic, so no big deal. We've beaten them on the big stage. We can do it again, right?
And the Preds are 3-0 against the Minnesota Wild this year after beating them on this past Tuesday. And now the Preds are 3-0 in the season series, and each one of those games they've won 6-2, 6-2, and 5-2.
Wow!
So needless to say,
wins, they're butt kickings.
So needless to say, yes, Preds fans would much rather claim that third spot. Minnesota, you can keep second place in the division. You can you can buy yourself a cookie. You can do something to pat yourselves on the back for finishing in second place. And
visit the new Shake Shack and Enterprise Center.
That kind of thing. Give me that third place finish in the division so that you can get Minnesota in the first round and avoid Calgary or Colorado. Yeah.
I think out of the two teams, Blues and Predators, I think Predators probably have a better shot at upsetting Colorado than the Blues do. I just think so. That's what I'm thinking. Because I think the Blues just get super overwhelmed super quickly when it's a high octane offense on the other side of the ice. And whenever I've watched a Preds game, I was at the Preds at Golden Knights game not too long ago. And I mean, the Golden Knights, look at all the star power they had on the ice that day. And the Preds just skated stride for stride with them, and then Forsberg scored the most beautiful breakaway goal I've ever seen in my life, So
he's done a lot of that this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you're talking about, taking the most penalties was just something that obviously really surprised me. I'm looking now. It says your penalty kill percentage is just a hair under 80, which is pretty good. So at least the penalties that you're taking, you're killing off for the
Yeah.
most part. That ranks 15th in the league, so middle of the
Yeah.
pack there.
It's not terrible. It's not
Yeah, the
terrible,
Blues power
but
play percentage has been pretty good. The Blues have a chance to break the record, the season record in power play.
oh wow.
They
Okay.
are sitting at 26.4. Their record, I can't remember the year, was like 23% or something like that.
Hmm.
So the Blues can just cruise
Well,
their way into that, which
I hate
which
to
would
break it
be
to you, but
awesome.
I hate to break it to you. I don't give a snowball's chance in hell to the Preds or the Blues if they have to play the Colorado Avalanche in the first
That's what
round.
we said about Columbus in 2019, and here we
I
are.
I think the Blues might have a slightly better chance just because I think they could.
On paper.
Just because I think the Blues could probably get in a shootout type of situation again, like not like a real shootout, but I mean like they could get in one of those track meets type of games
Yeah.
where maybe the Blues can beat the Avs 6-5 in a game. Whereas I'm not so sure that the Preds can really win those types of games just yet. They just don't have the secondary scoring that the Blues have. So
Gotcha.
yeah, but definitely third place seems important. I have that game circled on my calendar for sure. Anytime you play the Blues. All right, so I'm gonna get you out of here with this. Again, this has been Mason, who is contributor for St. Louis Game Time, part of SB Nation. Also makes appearances on Toasted St. Louis podcast. All right, so we kind of already alluded to it, but I really want to get your ceiling for this Blues team. You said second round exit. But what it really is, that what Blues fans need to see to consider this season a success, or do you think that really you need to like push to at least get to the Western Conference Final? Because I feel like this team's good enough to win a cup if they get hot at the right time. So, and then I'll
Yeah.
kind of tell you how I feel about the Preds after that.
Yeah, when I'm looking at the Blues, I got a sneeze coming on, so if I sneeze, let me know. When I think about the Blues, especially after the cup run, it's hard to tell what success is after that because you've seen success, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've proven all you could. We got our core pieces built around that for 5 years, and then boom, here we go. Finally got that long eluded cup. And then now we're kind of stuck, especially after the bubble, where we're like, now what? Like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Do we like keep going? Do we like gear up, for a run maybe 5 or 6 years down the road? Or are we still trying to win now? Are we going to
Wait,
lock up too many
time out.
people to
You don't want to be the Tampa Bay Lightning where you're pushing for three-peats. Like,
do you know how bad Lightning fans have it on Twitter right now?
They're almost like, I don't know if you watch college football, but they're almost like
Tampa Bay Lightning are the second most ratioed team on hockey Twitter besides the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, that's pretty surprising. But so I mean, they've kind of, that fan base has got to start becoming like Alabama football fans, where it's like it's so hard to get any joy anymore because you're so spoiled. It's like,
well, the thing is, the Blues don't really need. Okay, the Blues have to think about this, right? Because with them in winning the cup kind of thing, our biggest fear as fans is like mediocrity, because we were that for 50 fucking years, right?
wow, yeah.
So that's our biggest fear, is doing that. And we've seen, constantly, I mean, Tampa Bay with their rebuild, Toronto with their rebuild. I mean,
Look at Chicago right now. Look at where the Chicago Blackhawks are at.
Look at the Kings right now. I mean, the Kings are going to be more dangerous, a lot quicker than we thought they would be. Just all these teams gearing up.
They did it the right way.
The Blues don't want to like keep making big splashes and lock players up to ridiculous contracts if they don't have to, kind of thing, because that's the key to mediocrity. That's what they've been doing their entire franchise, and we got lucky that we got a cup out of it finally. But I think the smartest thing to do was always just to retool. But the Blues have kind of, like their 50-year history. They've always been kind of in that middle ground there, not good enough to be good, not bad enough to be bad. They're good enough to be playoff contenders, but they're bad enough where they can't do anything in them right now. And I think that's the biggest fear, at least for me, especially.
That makes sense.
But I mean, after that bubble, I think the Blues should have done, rather than making big splashes like that, they should have geared up, loaded up their prospect pool kind of thing. We haven't had a second round pick for 4 years, and we're not going to until 2023 now.
That's crazy.
So that's 5-6 prospects that could be coming up the system that, we're missing out now because we're trading for older players kind of thing. Obviously, Pavel Benchnavic has been probably the best acquisition in Blues history.
Well, you got Nick Leddy. You got Nick Leddy.
Oh, yeah.
The defenseman. I don't know how you feel about him to kind of help with your defense a little bit from the Red Wings.
It at first, grew on me a little bit as time has gone on, and he hasn't been a liability, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, but that's the main thing. Yeah, with the Blues, you can't, especially even with that cup roster, even if you kept everybody around, I highly doubt they repeat.
It's really funny that you bring up the whole fear of mediocrity thing, because I feel like Preds fans feel the same exact way, only obviously minus the Stanley Cup. But we feel this. We kind of feel the same way. Like it's like I kind of said it earlier. It's like, okay, yeah, we made the playoffs. Congratulations, whoop-de-doo. Like, yeah, it's nice to host a couple playoff games on Lower Broadway because it's always a crazy party every year, even in the first round. But it's like you're kind of getting numb to it, to where it's just really not that special. I remember when the Preds first started making the playoffs in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and it was like it sounds sad and you might laugh at it, but it was like the joy of just making it in the playoffs and getting to play a team like the Detroit Red Wings in the first round was just so special. It's just such a special feeling. And that feeling, you don't really get that anymore around here, which you shouldn't. You shouldn't get that feeling. Like, you should want more. And so even in a season like this season where we didn't expect to make the playoffs, I can tell you that Preds fans are still going to be very, very disappointed if they get knocked out of the first round yet again. So, I guess both fan bases are kind of in similar spots, even though.
Absolutely. And the big thing, I think, with the Blues, I don't know about the Predators, but when the Blues have good games, they have good games. I've watched, 9 or 10 games throughout this year where I'm like, oh my God, this team, if they play like this, they're winning the cup. They're not just making the cup, they're winning the cup. But they just, I don't know if it's a motivation issue. Fans on Twitter have been calling for Berube's head, which I half agree, half disagree with kind of thing. But there's just been a lot of internal bickering, over minute little details. But if the Blues just just hone in those really good games, and I mean really hone in on it, if Husso's playing out of his mind, I think Husso's going to be game 1 starter, especially if Bennington keeps playing like this. I have no doubt in my mind. Especially if, this team finds that motivation, it finds that reason to kind of fight for, I guess, is the question. I mean, they had that whole Layla story, which kickstart the team kind of thing. That was a big motivation thing. Fans really rallied around that. If the Blues could just find something like that, then they could win the freaking cup. I will have no doubt in my mind. I will know game 1 of the playoffs if the Blues are a good playoff team or not. I will know by then.
Well, the Preds are definitely guilty of that. I mean, they just got done whooping the Minnesota Wild, who had just won
oh, goodness.
Yeah, the Minnesota Wild were on an insane hot streak, and then the Preds just roll in and just completely wipe the floor with them. But then the Preds can't beat But then the Preds can't beat teams like the Buffalo Sabres. So
didn't the Wild have 50 shots on goal that game?
They did, but a lot of that came in garbage time because they were trying to come back. But
of course,
a little misleading. But they did pile up a lot of shots. But yeah, so it's just, I mean, that's the ongoing headache of being a diehard hockey fan. Is sometimes you really just don't know what you're going to get out of your team. And I feel like both Blues and Predators are definitely in that same boat when it comes to sometimes looking really good and then sometimes just looking terrible. But I really hope that the Preds can get in the playoffs and be a part of what's going to be a really, really good Western Conference playoff round. You've got the Dallas Stars who are looking to be there. I would rather see the Dallas Stars get that wild card spot so that Vegas fans can learn what it feels like to be a real team.
I think Predators, obviously not a lock, but I think Preds are making it. I have a very hard time thinking otherwise.
All right. Well, Mason, it's been awesome, man. Again, this has been Mason's joined us, who covers the St. Louis Blues for SB Nation, St. Louis Game Time. Go follow him on Twitter at Blues Fan Reacts, and also been on Toasted St. Louis podcast, St. Louis Blues podcast. Mason, it's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much for joining us on Catfish on Ice.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Also subscribe to Blues Fan Reacts on Twitter or on YouTube as well. Do that.
Yes, go do that as well. We'll throw you a subscription as well, man. All right, it's been a lot of fun. This has been episode 119 of Catfish on Ice with Chad Minton. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We will see you next week for a new episode. Take care.